Today is the 3rd of March. It's about 5 p.m. Today is the fourth video on law, and it's about public law today. So public law is another mainly constitutional law. Okay. So the first thing you want to know is to do as a law student, you want to get the right book. So these are some book recommendations. So this is one of the good books by Mark Elliott. He's an Oxford lecturer. So then another one is this Andrew Leisure. This is the text cases and materials. It's not the best, but it has a lot of original source. They quote from the original source. This is like Hilary Barnett. This one is a very old edition. It's I think now it's about 15 edition or something. This is I think a 20 or 30-year-old book. So these are the three can say books that I have that I will recommend. Public law is we can say sometimes we think it's not what does it got to do with us, because constitutional law applies to the government. It tells the government what they can do or what they cannot do, whereas criminal and contract law tells the citizens what they can and cannot do. So we are not in the government, so how does it relate to us, right? But it's like it's a common knowledge. It's a common knowledge that you want to increase your understanding of the government, because it's like if you work in a company, the CEO, what the CEO does, he entertain clients, like how he get business, how he manage the operations, how he manage the product development. If let's say you are working as an accountant there, you say, I don't know, I don't care, all I want to know is how to close my accounts every month. He is the CEO. You need to know what matters to him, because it is because we are the government. Actually, every citizen, like United States, they have this slogan: the government for the people, by the people. So the people elect the government. We are so-called participants also. Okay. Right. Is you need to know what is they are doing also. Okay. So what law do they follow? Can they do anything they like or not? And why are they doing certain things certain way? And the laws that Parliament makes affect us also. What kind of law they follow to make laws that affect us? I don't know but you want to it's and also is I don't know maybe you go through a bit. This is just an introduction, maybe about 21 minutes, I hope. Okay, the first main thing we want to know we want to talk about constitution. What is a constitution? Because we got two types. One is a codified, one is a non-codified. In UK, it's a non-codified constitution. There are only I think 3 countries in the world. One more is New Zealand, and that don't codify their constitution because their constitution comes from very long ago. So sorry, just a moment. So there is no, it's not like Malaysia. So the difference between codified and non-codified is codified, the constitution is whatever parliament laws that parliament create, you can say it's not valid if it's unconstitutional. The act of parliament, the judge can refuse to apply the law that parliament sets. So every law that parliament sets have to be constitutional, have to be in line with the constitution. Whereas non-codified constitution, because the constitution is not supreme, so parliament, whatever law parliament makes, right, you don't have to say whether it's constitutional or not. So US is the Supreme Court will always say, this is constitutional or not. So basically, the Supreme Court is quite power is quite influential lah. So yeah. Malaysia is codified, okay, in case you didn't know. And so constitution, the UK constitution, how it came up, because Malaysian's constitution is like a mirror of UK, but UK, how UK got theirs, right? So why UK don't have a codified is of course now there are some critics in UK. They say no, we must codify it. Some people they argue we have to codify to protect human rights. We to protect individual liberties. What happened if Parliament suddenly decide to come out some bad laws? But the UK Parliament constitution is, when you don't codify, it's good because you can modify it. It's very easy to modify. It's very easy to change. Once you codify, you want to change, you have to get a 2/3 majority, and you have to vote, you have to debate, and people don't have the willpower to go and change the constitution, right? Like last time got jury, Malaysia. Now in criminal cases, now no more jury, right? Mahathir took it, abolished it, and so is it good or bad? Then you got the death penalty, you got all this so we want to see the UK's history, and basically UK never had a codified constitution, right? You can go and study more why. Okay, but it's nobody wants to. They don't need it because they like it to be flexible. For example, right, if you want to sue the government, okay, let's say you don't like the government, they decide to take away your land, they want to build highway on your land, then they pay you very little. All this law do they have to follow is constitutional law. If you fix it like Malaysia has, if it's wrong, you cannot change anymore. Very hard to change. But UK, it's not constitution. Of course, they have an act of parliament to regulate all this. But act of parliament is, like I say, easier to change. And so a constitution is basically it passed down from generation. It's like, even though you are let's say you found a company, you are the founder, you are the CEO, you will have a constitution for your company also. You tell what the company will do, what kind of business you will go into, all the you like board of directors meeting, how many meetings you have a year, who are the things. You want the thing to, when you die, it will go down to the next generation also. So constitution is like when the founding fathers, right, like Tun Razak or what's his name, Tunku Abdul Rahman, or the founding fathers of US and all, they passed down the constitution. So now, until now, we are still having their legacy so it's that's why US now everybody can own guns, because guns is part of their the 10th Amendment, I think, or the Second Amendment. So because so the US constitution is different. US constitution, you see, right, when they allow everybody to own guns, it's a constitutional right, because that time they were fighting with the British. They want to very fast, they want to raise an army against an enemy, so they allow everybody to own guns. But now, why do you need that kind of thing? But people still say no, you cannot change it because it's a constitutional law. It's hard to change. But a lot of, imagine you drive car, you hit somebody, suddenly one guy take out a gun. Malaysia, okay, maybe you take out a knife or a parang, you can still run away. You take out a gun, right? You know how dangerous it is, Somehow they can own machine gun, shotgun, all got, not just handgun. So US very dangerous one. US you walk, suddenly you get, when people rob you, people take out gun. Malaysia, at least people take out parang only. Here people take out gun, there they take out gun. So it's very dangerous country there. It's too bad The constitution is like that. So how the people who change the constitution, how they want to see ahead of 100, 200 years? How do you want to know? Last time no internet 30 years ago. Suddenly, how you want to foresee? Cannot, ma. That's why there's a problem with a codified constitution, right? But only 3 countries, I think, in the world don't have a codified constitution. Okay, and this is the introduction of what is a constitution. So you got what is the so if UK don't have a codified, where do they get their sources, right? So their one is through like so okay, if you don't have a constitution, so how do you know who is more powerful, the judge or parliament? And does the judge have the power to review the laws of parliament or not, or the actions of parliament? So if parliament, let's say, decide to want to go to war, like UK went to war with Iraq or is it Afghanistan, and they didn't get parliament to debate or vote, they didn't get parliament's approval lah. They just went in, they fought, they've become ally of the US and went to attack Iraq, I think. And is it constitutional? So right, so all these things there are 2 theories. One is legal constitutionalism, one is political constitutionalism. So you see we have the idea that parliament is supreme. Parliament is number 1 in the country. They are the king, so called. But how about if parliament is bad? Who is going to review their decisions? So legal constitution say the judge can review. They call it judicial review. So if there's an action that you disagree, you can file a judicial review, and the judge can say the government have to do something. If they do something wrong, then like Malaysia, right, they took away all the durian orchards from the farmers, right? They say this is government land, you are here as a trespasser. Now after 20-30 years, you plant all your durian trees, all bearing fruit, now you want to take away the land from you. So they filed a judicial review against the government. I don't know what happened. They succeeded in the High Court, but then I think the government appealed to the Court of Appeal or something. Yeah. So legal constitution say the courts are like a check and balance. The courts will help. A political constitution, the theory is no, the judges better don't. We let the people decide. So if you don't like, you vote them out in the next general election. Right, the best one lah. So these are the main theories that we always have to which is it. Sometimes one is right, maybe you need both. Maybe you cannot have just legal, you need political constitution. Maybe you need both. You need the judges and the electorate to vote. So some of the theories. So the doctrines, like I said, first is parliamentary supremacy. Parliament is supreme. They can enact any laws. If they say tomorrow, let's kill all blue-eye babies, they can, theoretically. So there's nobody. So the other side is they say there is something called the rule of law. Rule of law means whatever laws, everybody will have to follow the same law. You cannot have one law for Najib and one law for the big boss VVIP, Dato Tan Sri, another boss for the normal people. Laws must be the same. Laws must be fair. You cannot simply punish people or simply say so the rule of law that it has to be just and that one is one but and another one is separation of power. Separation of power says that you need different organs of the government to have different functions. No one can have a concentration of power. So you need effective government. You need all 3. You cannot have one guy holding all the power. Nobody can question him. Right? But we still need somebody who is the top guy to have to decide to make the ultimate decision but you also need the correct laws, the correct decisions they call it rule of law right? So we need all 3 doctrines. But how do you? Some people say parliamentary supremacy is higher than both of the other two. Some say no, all three are the same. Some say no, separation of powers is some say rule of law is higher, right? So they got their own arguments lah. So ultimately is how you want to persuade people lah in the academic world lah, and all the so that is the three doctrines. So we got conventions. So constitutional conventions is what the government normally do. So like in UK, the Queen have to sign off on all the law. Of course, convention say the Queen can have to sign off on. She only got I think 1 month, or after 1 month you have to sign on. This is convention because all the queens, all the years they are like that. But what happen if one day the Queen say no, I decide I don't want to sign off. Like Malaysia, the Agong have to appoint the Prime Minister. But the Prime Minister by convention is the guy who commands the majority in Parliament. What happen if one day Agong say I don't want whatever, let's say UMNO or whatever, you put your candidate, I don't want, I want another person. Then we got they call it constitutional crisis. But so convention is not written by practice. And the consequence, if you break the convention, sometimes there is no clear-cut consequence. Sometimes the public will be angry with you. Sometimes, the academic, you will be criticized by the academics, by all the lawyers. But the normal people, they won't really know what is the convention about. So we got a lot of conventions. Like in Parliament, we got conventions. Like when we debate, how many people who can speak. Convention's good thing is flexible so there's no real consequence but the bad thing is also that so we have also the UK Parliament. So UK Parliament is like Malaysian Parliament. We got two houses, House of Lords and the House of Commons. So the House of Commons were last time when they overthrow the king, then they call themselves House of Commons because we are common people elected by the common. House of Lords were the so-called rich people, the king, the lords, and then they formed the Lords, the House of Lords, right? So in today, the House of Commons is the elected, House of Lords is it's not the elected people, they are selected by the people in government. And House of Lords, they got history because normally if you are a member of House of Lords, you will be lifetime membership. Okay, like Malaysia is senator. They call it senator will be selected by, I think you got 10 or 15 senators by the ruling government, right? And you can take away, ruling government can take away. I'm not sure how you, and US also, they got two houses okay. So the House of Commons is, they call it Dewan Rakyat. So so this, what do they do, right? Actually their main role, is to, what is their main role of the House of Commons and House of Lords? So the main purpose of the House, why we want the House of Commons, is to oversee the executive, because we got legislature, which is Parliament, and then we got the executive. Executive is like the IRB, the police, the soldier, the military. They are also the government, but they are the executive. Okay, so we want the non-executive, the Parliament, to check the police, the tax agent, income tax people, right? All the government servants all your so they are supposed to, they have the power. If anybody is not doing well, they can call the person. Let's say the police not doing well, call the police up and to give an answer what you are doing, and then Parliament will criticize, they will shoot you, and then they will say let's fire this police. Then the Prime Minister will say okay, so the Prime Minister is very powerful, he can fire anybody. I think so okay. That's why if they fired a lot of people Najib, and I think fired a lot of people. Okay. Of course, the judges, not the leader of the judge, normally not so easy to fire okay. But because so in parliament, in order to achieve that supervisory role, they need to debate. So they want to pass law. Their another role is to pass law. They can pass a primary law, which is acts of parliament, or they can pass secondary legislation, which is smaller laws, and is not so uh, not so many. They don't have to go debate. Like you don't have to vote in parliament. You need to pass a law. You need you need half more than 50% must what lah, okay, of the people present must vote. But secondary legislation, you don't need to go through all this process. You don't need to debate and all. Okay, the ruling party. So the ruling party is the guy who wins the general election. So the general election will be, in some countries, the US is different. Malaysia is the number of seats that you win. Right? Whoever can, but basically the idea is whoever can command the majority in parliament. Because if you cannot command majority in parliament, you cannot pass any act in parliament anymore. At the moment you table a bill, people vote it down. So you cannot govern a country anymore. So that's why we need person. Doesn't matter one party, two party, three party, as long as you have that guy who got. And so the moment that's why the system is very unstable. Sometimes they say suddenly he lose majority, right? He has to resign already. This is a convention, like Muhyiddin, right? Like Mahathir, and also Muhyiddin. He lost majority, then immediately, like the next week or within 1 week, you have to leave already, very fast. So politicians are like that. This is a theory because it's all based on these so-called doctrines, this so-called theory. It has always been like that in UK, so we are following. So how they want to pass a bill, normally how you want to debate, who can speak. Parliament got maybe 200, 300 people. Okay, if everybody speak, right, habis lah. You wait until the cows go home, although you cannot finish debate. You cannot finish. Nobody got chance to speak. So, how do you debate? How do you all these things we got process one. You need to table first. You need to give the draft law, and then you need to go through amendments. Before you come out a bill. So there's a process. Okay, it's quite detailed. And then the role of the House of Lords is when Parliament wants to create a law, it has to go through approval by the House of Lords. That's why you need a second House of Lords. Okay, the House of Lords because House of Lords will be not politicians. They'll be like businessmen. There'll be accountants, lawyers. You don't have to be elected politicians. So you have in UK at least, not necessarily in Malaysia, but in UK you got supposed to a variety of experience. Sometimes you got retired judges. So they will look at the law. They will say, is this law constitutional? Is this law good law, contrast? What is the, and then they will shoot back to the House of Commons, and the House of Commons will change it. And ding dong lah. So traditionally, if you cannot pass the House of Lords, you cannot enact a law. But now they change it. Now they say the House of Lords can only delay for, I think, 1 year in UK. If you never, even if you don't approve also for 1 year, it will automatically pass you. I think 1 or 2 years. So they slowly change. So they change the constitution. So so this is the thing of the House of Lords. So we also want to look at the judiciary. So the judiciary, we want to know basically and also we want to know scrutiny of the parliament. See, parliament, how, let's say you are opposition, what is your role? How you want to, so the role of opposition is to scrutinize, is to criticize scrutinize is the right word. So everything the Barisan Nasional do, let's say, DAP pass or whatever, is supposed to check them. We cannot go and check, so we need the opposition to always check. But it's not to always go and tembak them and all, but it's to so-called scrutinize. So for example, if the government got very big budget, they simply spend money, waste money. So you need a public accounts committee, you need all this to go and dig out lah, see what they are doing right. So the theory of ministerial responsibility. So it says that the ministers are basically the ruling party. The prime minister, when they select the prime minister will select his ministers. He can select 50, he can select 60. How many ministers he wants is up to him. Okay. But these guys, the cabinet, okay, they form the cabinet. They are responsible to parliament. The theory is so parliament got power to question them during parliament time, and they must answer. They must answer properly. They must answer truthfully. But another side of ministerial responsibility say my responsibility is not to answer to parliament. My responsibility is to govern the country. So you are disturbing my work. Every time you question me in parliament, you are disturbing my responsibility. So this is the mindset of politicians. The politicians, the minister saying, my responsibility is to govern, not to answer your questions. But in the textbook, they will say no. The responsibility is to parliament Okay, but in practice, it's not like that Okay, that's why the parliaments, when the opposition question them, they don't like one They don't. Do they like to give you answers in parliament? Do they give you proper answers? No You hear most of the time UK, Malaysia, same thing. Okay. Yeah. So they got, like I said, they got committee, public accounts committee. They got select committees so you can select any kind of committee. You can form any kind of committees to look at some issue and you can have opposition also involved in the committees. So this committee is quite useful to go and find what is the solutions and all. So theoretically, parliament, like I said, they can call any government servant. They can question any government servant Yeah. So the judges' role is in relation to parliament. Of course, the constitution will tell how many judges, how many courts, your Supreme, Appeal Court, all those But one very important aspect of the judge is judicial review. So when you say you sue the government under judicial review, what kind of law the judges apply? So the traditional law is they apply unreasonableness. This was since actually judicial review is quite late only about 150 years or 100 years old It started about 1900s. A lot of people sue the government. Before that, not many But traditionally, unreasonable say if the government's decision is totally illogical, means it's like quite stupid thing the government do illogical then you can say no. Like you build airport in a city, you object, the law can tell government no, cannot build if it's but sometimes it's not enough, because some cases they say even though it's logical, but there are other grounds that you want to go further. So another way, the recent trend is more proportionality. So you must look at what is the benefit and what is the cost of let's say you infringe our rights to privacy. Let's say you say cannot have free speech, cannot have freedom of assembly. Okay, the government say no, we want to protect or other people's rights. Then you have to see is other people which is more important. So the judge have to say is it proportional? Your action, is it proportionate to the problem you're trying to solve? And this proportionality is very common it's already in Europe. So because UK joined EU, so all the EU countries, a lot of them they are the EU court and all, they are applying proportionality. But UK, then they slowly adopt it, after a few cases. But it's still only for when you sue the government. You cannot, let's say you want to sue people, you cannot use proportionality. Let's say you want to sue a company, let's say you want to sue a government company, you cannot also. government company maybe can, yeah, but not private one-to-one lah, individual lah, only one lah, because government company is considered government, is part of the government also lah. So this is judicial review lah, and what are the procedures, how you want to, what are the grounds, like how you want to say lah. Of course there's something called natural justice also. Natural justice and irrationality is quite old lah, right? So if something is like not just and all, you can argue natural justice lah. Yeah, so this is judiciary, the main part of judicial review. So they got, of course there are others which are not covered in the UL syllabus, like freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, what are the powers given to the police, like all these can the police arrest you, they do have to tell you your rights, how long they can detain you, 1 week, 2 weeks, right? This is also human rights right? Yeah. So Malaysia, they got slightly you have to study more than UK, because Malaysia we got another additional, which is how to interpret the federal constitution, right? So if you got two parts of the constitution, one says freedom of religion, one says you cannot convert a Muslim, right? So the cases, how do you interpret both? Or one say you got freedom of expression, one more say, the one another law say subject to certain provisions, subject to 7 or something that government can limit your what. So what are the definition of all these 7 things, like public order, public order. What is public order? So the courts have already judge some cases. So this is a Malaysian law lah. So there's like a Malaysian law book that you can read. I haven't really go and dig into it, but Malaysia is quite conservative. So far the Malaysia, they normally side the government one. It's not so easy to win a case against the government, okay, when you sue under judicial review. But like Maria Chin Abdullah, she sued the government, they took her passport away. Then they say you cannot travel over. She wanted to go to Korea for award ceremony, right? She's one of the NGOs the one so civil society so she sued so she say you have no right to, why are you stopping me from traveling overseas, you, because the government say the immigration have power to prevent anybody it likes, so is that constitutional or not? And they say yes, but they say even though you have the right, but in this case they say you have to give her back her passport, you have to let her travel so she won on one issue, but I think on two other issues she lost, and it was a split decision. It was a 4 versus 3 decision, and the Chief Justice was in the minority. So we have a situation that we need to understand how interpretation works on the constitution, and it's not just how you interpret, it's how the judges have interpreted, then you try to apply, and they got like Justice Gopal Sriram, you got all the those famous judges also how they argue. Okay. Yeah, so the conclusion is we don't do everybody is subject to the law. Even the government who makes the law is also subject to the law. So this is the so-called democratic, so-called good system but in practice, in theory, but in practice we can have governments who say they have loopholes, they have all sorts of issues with all these things, right? Like when you have a budget, I simply give my budget to all my friends You know, who are you going to stop me? Who knows also? Nobody knows also. I can say he's not my friend. I'm giving him, you know, so I don't have open tender one when governments give in Malaysia at least. In company, everybody, you know, need open tender. How come in governments more important than company, no open tender? All these highways, few $1 billion, no open tender. But too bad, constitution never say, mah. So we have to think of ways, you know, to make the government accountable. But how? You got no power. You and me got no power, mah. But that's why it's theory and practice is different, lah. You know, you want to, I mean, in practice, government say I got gun. You want to listen to me or not? Like Myanmar, I got gun, of course you got constitution, but I got gun. Who's I say you know. So yeah. Okay, so that's why people don't really focus on much on public law because they say not my business lah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.